I am Ryan, the Life Changer, and I am so grateful that you decided to join me today. This podcast is called Unlock the Power of Your Mind. Let me ask you a question. Are you ready for your life to change? Are you ready to unlock the power of your mind? Are you ready to be the best version of you possible? I want to help you. I want this podcast to give new, positive meanings to the difficult times that you faced in your life. And I want to help you become the best version of you possible. This is your time. The change is happening for you now. I know you're ready. Let's help today to change your life. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining me for another episode of Unlock the Power of Your Mind. This is going to be a special episode of Recover and Reclaim. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have with me Pete DeStasio. When Pete and I were connecting and asking how Peter would like to be introduced, he said, I'm not really sure. And ladies and gentlemen, that brought up such a great point to me because we can be whoever it is that we want to be. And I hope in our conversation with Pete today that we're able to share that message of love, that message of hope, and that message of positivity. So Pete, thank you so much for your time today. And just the first couple minutes, I've already learned a tremendous outlook from you.
Thanks, Ryan. It's great to be here today. I'm glad to be able to finally talk to the masses a little bit. I've kind of always wanted to do this, kind of tell my story, because it's just so cool when you start to like reclaim, and that's the perfect thing. Reclaim is what you do. You reclaim your life, your friendships that matter will come back. Like, people say I can't change my life. I got a whole new life in 18 months after 10 plus years of craziness. So I don't buy it,
Yeah. Well, that's tremendous. And definitely we're going to share with the listeners today a little bit about that message and what opportunities they have to start their life over again, or hit the restart button, or become just a new and improved version of themselves. So Pete, let's start out with the listeners. Share with them a little bit about what your early childhood was like.
So I grew up in the Boston area, right outside. I had a younger sister, Rochelle, and my father and mother, Peter and Paula. They divorced when I was 6. My father was a police officer. His side of the family owned bars. He was a partier, drinker, etc., etc. My mother, toughest woman I know. I get my strength and my resiliency from her. Hard worker, took care of the two of us when my father left when we were 6. Always made it a point to do as much as she could for us. My sister, unfortunately, suffers from some mental issues, mental illness. So when we got to high school, my mother kind of had to chase my sister. And so with one parent around, good boy Pete, the athlete, the good student, kind of said, we could do whatever we want now. So, I mean, my childhood was good. My mother she's a saint. I think God calls her privately sometimes. I can't say enough about her. I have Mama's Boy right tattooed on my arm. She's my best friend, and it's
That's great.
I'm so lucky.
That's great. And so share with the listeners a little bit about high school, what that was like. Did you find yourself kind of getting in with the wrong crowd? Were you in with sports? What was your social life like at that point?
So in high school, I was playing sports, football, basketball, baseball. I was an athletic kid, very athletic, able to get on the field and whatnot. But with no one around, you're not going to do homework. That's the first thing that goes. So my grades start to suffer. And, you can't play. So now what's the point of even really doing much school? That's what's going on in my mind, because I'm out, I'm drinking beer now, vodka, I'm out socially, you know, I'm a social butterfly. I have friends, everything, you know, so like I wasn't down this awful path. I just wasn't doing like they say, youth is wasted on the young. You know, I just my mother had to take care of my sister. I understand that, and the me now would have had there would have been no issues. I would have done more.
Sure, sure. Okay. And so after high school, did you go to college? Did you get a job? Kind of walk the listeners through what the next part of your life was like.
Um, I tried the college thing, not for me. Bounced around, you know. Those college athletes take everything real serious. You know, at that point, serious for me was like, let's go out Friday night till 4 a.m. and party. You know, that was more fun. So I went to barber school. I am still to this day a barber. So that has always stayed with me. It's it's something I've always been able to do, cut hair. And then the natural progression when I wasn't going to finish college was I'll become a barber.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that kind of makes you that definitely makes you an entrepreneur and having an understanding of what it's like to have your own business. What would you say was your biggest takeaway from being an entrepreneur in that sense of being a barber?
You have to show up. You have to be there because you can't keep a clientele and not be there. You have to provide a quality service as best as you can, and you have to connect with people. You have to you know, my clients, they're like friends. You know, some of them are, you know, 15 years, and I know just about as much about them as they do about me. And I mean, not to sidetrack, but like when I got clean, I let them all know, like, listen, guys, I'm coming clean. I ran wild. I probably cut your hair on some stuff before. And I connected so much better with them. And like they're now some of my biggest supporters. Like it's just it's so cool.
That's awesome. That's incredible. So it sounds like kind of your vulnerability actually helped you to connect with them to an even greater level.
I put it all out there. I don't hide from any of it. Not with my nieces, my nephews, my mother, my aunts, my friends, anyone. If I see someone struggling, I'll walk right up and I'll tell them, hey, buddy, you know what? 18 months ago, I was on fentanyl, a $300 a day habit. You know, not heroin, fentanyl, if you're familiar. And it's just, you know, I want them to know you can restore hope. Like as long as you have hope, you can restore everything. Can be restored. Everything can be fixed. Everything can be gotten through.
For sure, for sure. So let's kind of get into the crux of what we're going to speak about today, and so that the listeners can kind of understand what that road looked like for you and what that dark journey looked like. So you were drinking alcohol in high school. After high school, still kind of going out and doing the partying. Kind of walk us through how you started to go down that dark path.
So I drank, but you know, all the kids would smoke pot and weed, and that I never did because I was afraid of the drug commercials, which is fun, you know. And you know, my father had gotten in some trouble, the police officer, for, you know, here's another a humdinger to take at 18. My father gets arrested in a major drug raid at the time. He's dealing kilos of cocaine.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. You know what I mean? Like at that age, with my mother helping my sister, and you know, already not sure what I'm. You know, that was a lot. You know, so I at 17, 18, when that happened, I said I need to smoke pot. And I remember the first time I smoked it, it was around Christmas time, and I looked at the lights, and I was like, "This is wonderful." And that was it. That was it. Anything, let's go. Let's do as much as we can. It was a natural progression because I was, you know, heading towards 2021. So, you know, we'd go out, we'd get some drinks. Cocaine comes into the mix. It's the natural progression, you know? And so that went on for probably till I was about 22, 23 years old. At this point, I had a girlfriend that I lived with for about 3 years. You know, She knew some of it. She didn't know all of it. What happened was the last year we were together, she went away on a trip, and I had the party at the house. And one of the kids that came was up in my room, and I thought we were going up to do cocaine. That's what I thought. That's the natural thing. That's what people do. And he looked at me and he says, "Have you ever tried Oxy?" I had tried Vicodin, Perks, Valiums, all the stuff kids dabble with. None of them, I didn't love any of them. They were all just took me out of the moment, which was cool at the time.
Right.
So he broke up this Oxy and he says, "Yeah, you just sniff it like cocaine." Well, I'll tell you what, and I can say it now, and I'm not embarrassed of it because I know who I am. Like, my core. I can't describe how I want to be introduced, but I know. I fell in love that moment. That moment. I was on another planet. All my anxiety was gone. All the pain, because it might not have been physical at the time, but dealing with my dad, I'm questioning why my sister's like that. Like, am I doing the right thing? And like, I was alone, and now I wasn't. It made me social, which it didn't stay that way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's stop there, Pete, for a second, because I think that's important. Because you said it relieved my pain, and then you spoke about some of the emotional pain of your father. I'm sure that there was probably kids joking on you and busting your chops. Talking about your dad. It's difficult enough on police officers in this world that we live in today, let alone somebody that was accused of doing something, that went against that the profession of law enforcement, right?
Right.
And then
Yes.
you've got your sister. I think that's just a natural thing as a loved one or as a family member to want to do more or feel guilty that you're maybe not doing enough. So you've kind of got a lot going on in your life, a lot of different things that just naturally could cause you pain or emotional distress. Were you cognizant of those things at the time, or was it just kind of like life was just hitting you with so many punches you weren't really sure what to think or do?
I just felt overwhelmed. The girl was gone for 3 years, first love of my life. I lived with her. She was a couple of years older, a little more mature. And, in hindsight, she's a great, great girl. I hope all is well with her now. But at the time, I just felt alone. I just felt abandoned again, like when my father left when I was 6. I mean, I have daddy issues. I can say that. I have no problem saying it. I don't anymore. I've made it a point to. I have the blueprint to be a good man. I'll just do the opposite of everything he did.
It's so funny, Pete. I want to stop you there. It's so incredible how you are able to frame it now that way, because a lot of times, just having a conversation with somebody about this the other day, we can look at people that we feel failed us in a relationship or maybe didn't give us what we had hoped or expected, and we can look at that individual as shortchanging us, or we can look at that individual as giving us everything because they showed us how to be by being the opposite, just like what you said, the opposite of what they were. So I want to commend you on that. I think that's so positive.
Thank you.
How were you able, so that the listeners can hear this? Because I want the listeners to take away some actionable strategies, not just that they can relate with Pete or relate with Ryan, but that they can have some takeaways to use to unlock the power of their mind and give them hope. So how can the listeners reframe? Share one strategy that you did, Pete.
Well, the at that point, like right now, like is in the past 2 years in sobriety is when I've actually learned this, like that he, what did your father ever teach you? And I used to tell people nothing, 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 nothing. And you'll hear people say only men can raise men. Well, you know something? he did all that without being there.
So powerful, man. All right, but let me ask you this, Pete. If you could go back and say something to 6-year-old Peter, if you could give 6-year-old Peter advice, what advice and love would you give him?
I would tell him that your mother is, despite what you're going to put her through, because, it's amazing she's my friend, she dealt with more than anything. I'd tell him, your mother, you have to, whatever you have to do to help your mom. She loves you. And your sister, it is what it is. Accept it. Your father, he's not gonna be around. You have to just deal with it. Like, it sucks to have to come, like, I want that cake, but I can't have that cake. Like, that's not fun. Like, that's not good, but
Sure.
once you can say, you know what, I'd like the cake, I'm not gonna be able to have the cake, and you kind of come to the realization, the truth is, time will heal everything. It will. If you just you have to just accept it. You have to realize that that's not part of your story, that's not going to,
Yeah.
that's not, it's not going to be a chapter in the book. And that's okay, because there's other people. Like, I had an uncle. He's the best. He stepped in. He would take me into his house. He would, make sure I was okay, chase me around. My mother's brother. I mean, he did all that, see, and I, in hindsight now, I think about it, like, what a guy. Like, that's I have my 18-year-old nephew living with me now, and he's got some trouble coming his way. Like, we've already seen the writing on the wall. But when it was time to step up, there was not a question that I had to do it, because that's what my uncle did. That's what he showed me, and that was a good thing. That was one of my good memories.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's such a powerful line in what you just said. You have to realize and accept the fact that that is not going to be a chapter in the book. Wow.
Yeah, you just,
That's so powerful.
it's rough to realize, but once you can do it once, you'll realize, oh, I can do it again. I can do it again. And guess what you're doing now? You're writing your book.
So
Nobody's
powerful.
writing it for you. You're writing your book.
That's so good. That's so good. All right, so let's keep the story moving. So that was you had snorted the oxycodone, and share what was like from that point on. Now you're hooked at this point. Now you love it.
Now I'm all in. I'm running wild for a bit with my buddies. I meet another girl. Lo and behold, she likes to do Oxycontin. So you can imagine how wonderful this is. It becomes a total toxic, dysfunctional relationship that revolves around nothing but Oxycontin. That goes on for about 3 to 4 years. She leaves. So her family had some addiction issues. One day she left because, I was a nightmare when I would be sick, needing Oxycontin, whatnot. She would leave, and she finally left. She went to her mother's. She got into some other stuff. She had a rough run. She actually cleaned up, got married, had kids. So I'm happy about that, very good, because, once again, misery loves company. And, she was as miserable as me at the time. So I hold no ill wishes towards her, because that'll just, that'll hold me back. If you carry someone else's stuff, it's gonna be heavy on you. So how are you gonna move?
Sure, sure.
So yeah, we ran wild. Then when we broke up, I took a year and I went through this. It happened right around New Year's '07. I said, I'm not gonna do drugs. I'm not gonna drink. I'm not gonna have any women. I'm just gonna get into shape. That was my big plan. So I did this till about November of 2007. That is when I met. She's a huge part of it, Carlene. I was with her till last July, and she, we were engaged. Everything stood through me by me through so much, and she knew the extent of what was going on. She tried hard to like help. She enabled. I mean, I don't resent her for it because she didn't know what to do. She comes from a good family. She never experienced anything like this. We got together. Within a year, I was dabbling in Oxycontin again. You know, and then I would have times when like things would be okay and I wouldn't go as crazy partying, you know, smoking pot, like drinking, cocaine. Like at this point, I'm playing social more than anything. Like on the weekends, I'm a weekend warrior.
Right.
And, you know, this went on for probably about 5 to 6 years, right about the point when we got engaged. That's when I started to go back to the opiates, the perks, the Oxycontin. In the hindsight now, I realize it was because a lot of Kali and I loved each other so deeply that we stayed together for 5 years because everybody expected it. We were comfortable, complacent. And, you know, meanwhile, she has this monster, you know, drug addict looming in under her roof with her. You know, I went on the oxys, heavy. I robbed drug dealers. You know, I was a pretty big guy at that point, 6 foot, 265 pounds, you know.
Wow.
Still
So you're a
holding,
big dude.
yeah, I was still holding muscle. You want to hear how tapped I was? I used to convince myself that God kept me big and strong so that I could take the drugs from the drug dealers.
Wow.
Yeah, I was on another planet. You know what I mean? Like it was wild. You know, I look at some of my thought processing and my decisions from back then. I'm like, who the hell was that guy? You
Yeah.
know? And
So let me ask you this, Pete. What was, you share with the listeners kind of a little bit about how you felt that the drugs were helping you to alleviate the emotional pain back in the beginning. What was your fuel to do it now, or was doing it now just became part of your life, or you thought it became who you were or are?
well, yeah, that's all I ever knew to deal with anything. So going into the last like 2 years of my addiction, before August 12th, 2017, you know, I had a friend living across the street. He was into what I was into. He lost his house, his wife, his kid. So the best idea was let's move him in the downstairs apartment.
Oh boy.
Brilliant. Yeah. I went on Mr. Toad's wild ride. He had a great job. He made about $2,000 a week. The rent downstairs was awfully cheap. My job was primarily to just meet people during the day to get the drugs. I would go to his job site, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. You know, there was no issues. About a year into that, we would get money on the, you know, on the the Friday, and we'd be out by Monday. We'd go through $2,000 to $3,000. Like it was ugly. So he decided he was going to go get some help, and he did. And when he came home, you know, he said, you know, we would try to connect, but I know he didn't come around me because he knew I was out of control. I get it, because I had to do that at the beginning. And so he took off. I went on a run until about August. Yeah, 12th is when I went into a facility. I was messing with the fentanyl because that's all there is up here. There's no heroin anymore. The pills are being pressed with fentanyl. It's a big epidemic here. I went out. And my brother-in-law to be, who's one of my best friends, just happened to be there. I was wide awake, and 2 seconds later, I wasn't. Threw me in the shower. I was good, whatever. He looked at me after. He was like, dude. And I was like, I know. The next day I went into the room. I said, Kali, I said, I'm going away for 5 days to the detox facility. I called and got a bed. Matt Gainham, who's a huge, like, he's a great guy up here, helps the addicts, helps the recovery, works for a I think Bantam Clinic or something. He's a friend of mine. I actually was in a couple of he does poetry. I was in a few of his videos. He helped me get a bed. He said, I got you. So they said, be to Tewksbury by noon. I called up my dealer. I met him one last time. I got very, very high, and I headed to Tewksbury. When I got to Tewksbury, they intook me, urined me. The lady looked at me and she said, okay, sweetie. She said, you have very high levels. Do you need some methadone or Suboxone? Now, mind you, here I am, and I know what it's like to be sick off this. And I'm sitting in this room, and I looked at her, and Ryan, I'm gonna swear one word. I looked at her and I said, I'm sorry, ma'am, no more fucking drugs.
Wow.
And I said, can you get me to sleep for 4 days on something non-narcotic? She said, we have clonidine, Librium, and Benadryl. I said, I'll take it. For the next 4 days, I was able to sleep through the worst of the withdrawals. I was so lucky because that doesn't happen for everybody. That's why they come out on methadone and Suboxone. And I was able to sleep.
Wow. All right, Pete, let's take it back. Let's take it back to kind of leading in to August 12th. So was there things, and I want the listeners to be able to feel connected to you, and so that maybe there's some part of their journey that relates to yours, or maybe they can start to see themselves getting to that low of low. So what's like going through your mind in June and July of 2017?
Okay, at this point, I was pretty much alone. I was still living with Carly, but, I was alone. She wasn't around. No one wanted to watch this. Most of my friends were gone. I had a few good ones that would check in on me. Pete, come on. You all right? What's going on? So I was alone again. Here I was. I'm alone. I'm in pain. I'm upset. I'm emotional. I have a good job at this point. I have no money. I'm in this relationship with this girl that I'm complacent. I'm no longer in love with her. I love her very deeply, but I'm not in love. I'm in love with a whole nother girl that I want to be with. That last like few months was like wild, the emotions, because through it all, the best thing is it numbed my emotions. I felt nothing. That was a big joke around people that knew me. He feels nothing. It still is, he's emotionless, which is not the truth. That's the joke, is I am super emotional,
Yeah.
And, I was just a wreck. The pills weren't working. The drugs weren't working anymore. So now what?
Now it's fentanyl.
Yeah, the fentanyl wasn't working anymore. Now what? Where do I go from this?
Wow. So you got to the point where even fentanyl wasn't, easing your pain, your emotional pain.
I functioned on it. I went to work. I held a full job.
Wow.
It was bizarre. And at this point, when I would get out of work, I would come home, I would eat unhealthy, get wicked high, and sit on the couch and nod out. That's what I did for like 2 years. I ballooned up to 302 pounds. I was dead. I was a zombie. I could just walk. That was it. It hurt to walk. My joints hurt,
Because you had put on the weight.
Yeah, looking in the mirror. I didn't look in mirrors.
Wow. So a message of hope, August 12th. What is it? You're in the shower, or then afterwards, your brother-in-law says something to you, like, why that day did you say, okay, that's it, no more?
I don't know. All I know I don't know what happened. All I know is something went off inside me and was like, is this what you're going to do? I was disgusted with myself, but somewhere, something that fight that I had to me when I was younger popped back out. Like, I don't know why at that moment. Maybe it was I was in a fight for my life, maybe. I don't
Very
know.
literally, you were in a fight for your life.
Mm-hmm. Because I'll be honest, if the fentanyl didn't kill me, eventually I would have jumped off the Tobin Bridge. That's what people go around here.
Wow.
You
Wow. So
know, that was starting to seem like a great idea.
gotcha. So that's lowest of low right there. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
get any lower than that.
Right. My mother was upset with me. You know, that was awful. We didn't talk for a long time. So you can imagine what that did to me because she had to do it.
Here's the one woman in your life that's always been there, that has always shown you unconditional love, but at this point knew that she could no longer enable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and she had long since stopped enable. She just wasn't going to watch it anymore.
Understood.
You know, I had a good job. I didn't see, that was the thing. I didn't need to do a lot of that sneaky stuff. I still have, and I'm lucky, I still have the job and it's great now. But, you know, I didn't have to do a lot of the underhanded things at that point in my life. I could come home, be in my apartment, meet a guy in the driveway, and it was very easy and convenient.
And because you were able to still hold the job, you were able to still kind of live the two lives in a
People
sense.
had to watch it. They couldn't stop it because I wasn't taking from them. So I like to tell them, you guys that are here still, I know you love me because I hurt you guys in a way that's the worst. You couldn't do anything.
Because you were still going to be able to get whatever it was that you wanted to get because you had the job and you had the money.
Yep. I have that brain. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no, I understand. So it's August 12th. You're in the rehab center. The nurse looks at you. Oh, the methadone. The real thing that I think is so powerful is that for the first time, maybe not for the first time in your life, but at a very, very critical moment, and you say, I don't want any more fucking drugs.
no more fucking drugs.
How did you feel? Was that freeing to say? Like, how long had you been wanting to say that for?
Oh
And
my God. Oh my God. I'm in tears right now thinking about it because you know what? At that moment, as crazy as this is going to sound, I knew this was no longer an issue.
that is so incredible, and I'm so proud of you. I know that this is emotional, and I appreciate your vulnerability. I really
I
want
show it all, Ryan.
to. I want to focus on this moment right here because I want the listeners, anybody that's out there that's struggling or has a loved one that's struggling, right? Like, this is it, man. This is where it happened for you. So, what's going through your body as you say that to her?
Oh, I'm very high at this point. I just got
Okay,
it, you know. So that's what made it even crazier. Like, you know, afterwards I'm thinking to myself, what did you just do? You know, like, but in the moment I said, it's done. It's done. You did it. You know, people do it all the time. They're like, I'll just go get on Suboxone. Then it becomes, I'll sell my Suboxone and get high. And then they're back to square one. I didn't want to go back to square one. I knew that much. I knew that like where I wasn't good. It wasn't fun. I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. It wasn't who my mother wanted to put on this earth. Like that was the worst. Like to know your mother's not proud. To know that like, you know, your sister's got some issues and so your mother, you know, she's not going to be able to do anything to make your mom proud. And that wasn't right because my mother's sisters and brothers, all their kids made them proud. Like they did what they were supposed to. My mother had a different issue because she was alone and she did great, man. Really, she did with the card she was dealt. But she got dealt a losing hand.
Yeah. So you're lucky enough to be able to sleep through those 4 days of rehab. Share with the listeners what that journey is after you wake up from those 4 days.
So very, very much like just in a fog, you know, quantity and equilibrium. It's pretty strong. Now it's time to leave. So I call Carly and she comes and picks me up. Now, as I leave, I feel good. I mean, I'm still weak. I'm not me who I am now, but I feel good. I feel like I'm going to do this. I feel like I can do this. So I get in the car, we come home, and we get to the house, and we don't say much. She just, she's always was there. She was always there. At this point, she had found out that I had pretty much had another girlfriend. I had done a ton of drugs. I was in a double life. So she said, we might as well, I'll try if you want to try. Like, we'll clean the slate, new you, we'll do this. I said, okay. And, at this point, I said, I'm going to put everything into this. So I had work. The big issue is I would fall asleep at 1 a.m. and wake up at 4 every day. That was a lot of sleep for the first three months.
Wow.
But that ended up being the catalyst for everything I have now, believe it or not.
So that low amount of sleep you were able to spin that into a positive. How were you able to do that?
So at 302 pounds, opiate sick, unable to sleep, I said, you know what's open at 4 a.m.? The gym up the street from my house.
Well, now we're talking.
So I took my my ginormous ass to the gym, and I signed up. And I started to say, all right, you're going to get in the best shape you've ever been in. And, in the back of my head, I was like, I'm going to learn jujitsu, and I'm going to be great at it. Like, this is what I'm thinking about a week out of detox.
I respect the heck out of you for that. I have to ask you, where is this coming from? You feel this coming from God or your higher power or deep within you? Where's it coming?
Well, at this point, obviously my spirituality was out the window. I wasn't good with God. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, take him or leave him.
Right.
But when I left detox, I realized someone was looking out for me. Obviously God. So I named him Fred. Fred was my higher power. I'm a little nuts, Ryan. That was my own way. And I used to pray to water. That was where I would pray, like when I got out. Eventually now me and God are good. I talk to him daily. He still thinks I'm a little bit of a knucklehead, but he says it's his hope.
God loves us unconditionally, but go ahead.
But I knew at that moment that it was time to fight. It was time to fight. Like, I don't know why. My big issue was being alone. That was my big issue as I sit here right now alone in my apartment. My nephew's off for the weekend, but I can be alone now. And I said to myself at that moment, what's the most alone thing you can do? Like, high stress. It's fight, jujitsu. And I think that had a lot to do with it. Like, I wanted to turn my weakness, my vulnerable thing into a strength.
Yes. Yeah.
Be able to walk into a room with my head up. And you know what? Yes, it helps that I can hit like 24 different submissions, but it's not even about that. I can walk in and you know what? I did this. You can say whatever you want. I did this.
You gave power to your pain.
Right. I did. The guy that didn't want to feel things and didn't want to feel pain, I now used all of it. I now used every bit of it. Oh, you don't like my sneakers? I'll jump higher than you. Oh, you don't like it was crazy. Like, it was obsessive. It was the addict's brain, but I was using it to be healthy, for fitness, for self-improvement podcasts. Chris Cavallini, he's from Braintree, Mass. He's got a huge nutrition company down in
Chris is an awesome guy.
Oh, I reached out to him. He befriended me. He's the best. And I just, he would give me little tips. I engulfed myself. I studied nutrition, this, that, and the other thing. I would go at 4 a.m. I would do an hour of fasted cardio. I would do intermediate fasting. I'm a huge wrestling fan. I was able to go to 4 different events I traveled for because I had money. Like everything was, things that my 12-year-old self will truthfully could look at me right now and be like, you're the man. I'm a giant kid. That's why the nieces and nephews all love me. And that's huge. That's so cool that like Uncle Pete, like they, you can leave them with Uncle Pete now and it's going to be nothing but a positive experience.
Right. Incredible.
Yeah.
So how long did that take you? You went from 302 down to what?
So I actually went from 302 to my lowest, I was 182. Because I stripped all the fat off. And then I've put some back on because I try to compete for between 190 to 210 in that 20-pound range.
Right.
But I put it back in I am a totally, like, people see me and I get accused of steroids.
That's how ripped up you are now.
Yeah, I have veins. They don't just run down, they run across. Now, I'm not big like I used to be, but my joints feel good. I feel good. I'm comfortable with who I am. I'm not going to lie. Anyone that's struggling, you should try the exercise thing. It releases the endorphins. And like, as you can compete against yourself and it becomes easier to look in that mirror. That's the key thing. I didn't look in a mirror for a long time. I have them all over the house now.
Pete, I think that's so incredible. That's such an incredible message of inspiration and hope, but just like true realness and true vulnerability. And I commend you for that, to say there was a period of time in my life where I didn't even want to look in the mirror. And so for any of the listeners, and listen, we've all probably been at that point at one point in time in our life, whether it was for an hour, a day, a week, a month, a year, or several years. We've all been at that point, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so, your message and your story is so incredible to be able to say, like, hey, I was there. And not only was I was there for a long period of time. But guess what? I put in the work, and that's not who I am anymore. Now I look in the mirror and I love myself and I'm happy.
Right. I mean, Chris said something to me one day. We were talking, and it was the best thing I said. If you don't like the direction you're going in, just turn around and go the other way. Simple.
So simple, but so true.
Right. And so that's what it became. And then it became, Carly and I stayed together for till July of this past year. And, she left. She just couldn't get past things. I get it. I had a tough time with it. I was coming up on a year sober. Everybody was scared. And you know what? I knew that I wasn't going to pick up or do anything. I knew it.
How did you know it, Pete?
Because I was done that day that I told her no more fucking drugs. Yeah. I don't lie to myself anymore. I don't break promises to myself anymore.
So powerful, man. So powerful. So what message, Pete, do you have to the listeners out there? Let's start with this. The message, Pete, that you would tell your mother back in times where you were going through a tough time. What advice do you have to all the mothers and fathers and loved ones out there of somebody that's struggling with addiction?
I think every situation's different. I think you know your child. You should know your child. My mother knew to cut me off would be eventually, if I didn't die or end up in jail, that, she knew what she was doing. And, it's what, like, my mom, we text every day. We talk 3 or 4 times. Like, it's nuts. Like, and I tell her all the time, I say, Ma, if you didn't just tell me to go, I said, I would have never got here. I wouldn't have, I said earlier, my father made me a man without being there. Well, my mother instilled cause and values, and she very much helped me become a man by saying, here, go fend for yourself. I'm not watching. This is what your life's going to be.
So that tough love.
Yeah, it wasn't what she's an Italian. It wasn't, you know, and I'm an Italian son. So like, you know, that's not going to work.
Right, for sure.
That's just not how it goes.
And Pete, what message do you have to those out there that are looking for some hope, man, that just that don't love themselves, don't feel that they're surrounded by love, kind of in a dark place in their life? What message do you have to send to them?
It's all it sucks to hear this, but it's all on you. It's all on you. And that's, once you realize that that's the beauty of it, it is all on you. It's on you. So, you know, you and I walk into a coffee shop, we don't know each other. I turn around, you whack me, coffee goes all over me. I could get mad. I could get pissed. I could get a bunch of things. Or I could get in my car, go home, and put on another sweatshirt. It's not the end of the world. It's just your past. It doesn't even count. In 100 years, you sniffing a bunch of fentanyl in a bathroom in downtown is not going to matter to anyone. So thus, you get to write your book.
Love it, man. I love it. It's so powerful. And, you know, the book thing can be cliche in a sense, but I love how you phrase it, which is, you know what? Sometimes there are going to be certain chapters that just aren't going to be in your book. That is something that is going to stick with me, and I know it's going to stick with the listeners. I love that. So,
yeah.
Is there any other last, you know, for the listeners that heard your story and felt inspired, man, how can they get in touch with you? You know, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I have an Instagram account. It's Petey, P-E-T-E-Y, D, Baby, B-A-Y, that's for Adam Cole. He's my favorite wrestler. He does Adam Cole, Baby. I told you I'm a huge 12-year-old nerd boy. So I have that. I also, if anyone's struggling, especially up here in Massachusetts, I mean, hopefully I can stay connected with you, Ryan. You're a pretty great guy.
Thank you.
I can be reached at Pete.DeStasio, DESTASIO, at yahoo.com. If you're up here and you're struggling and you need to be pointed in the right direction, please reach out to me. I will get you into treatment. Don't worry about the insurance issues. I have a lot of people up here that have gravitated to me, and I've gravitated to them, and we want to help. We want to give what we have, because that's how we keep it. And so, I'm not in an AA program or an NA program, because like I told you, I was done. Sometimes I do go to them. I have good friends that have been in them for years, and you know, they'll say, wait, he doesn't do meetings? That's not good. And they'll look at him and they'll say, he's still here. Look what he's done in 18 months for himself. And sure. So it's not the same for everybody, but I'm going to tell you what, coming off those drugs are nasty. It's not a fun thing. That's why people fall right back in. If you're hurting, just reach out. Like, I'll do my best to direct you wherever you need to go. We'll get you going. When you come out, I have some people that you can, you know, kind of hang around with for a little bit, that, you know, that are in AA if you decide to go that way. And I'll tell you what, like, I'm doing it now. If you want to do the fitness thing like me, you want to learn how to do some jiu-jitsu, some boxing, reach out to me. I'll bring you. We'll train. I'll beat you up for a little bit.
Awesome. Well, Pete, listen, I know how emotional it is to really go back to some of those dark times. I could hear it in your voice and just sense it through our conversation today. I'm sure that wasn't easy, but there's a peace in your voice that I can hear, and I'm sure the listeners will be able to pick up on as well. So thank you so very much. I respect and appreciate all of the emotion and time that you've shared here with us today.
No problem. I was glad to do it. Thank you so much. It was very good. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome, Pete. Keep the inspiration going. Keep the positivity going. And God bless you, my friend.
You too, Ryan. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. I'll be in touch.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this podcast today. My prayer is that it has helped to change your life, to make a positive impact in your life. And I just want to let you know that every single day, the first goal that I write down is I have changed 1 million lives. So ladies and gentlemen, if this podcast helped to change your life today, I would ask you to please go onto iTunes, rate, review, and share this episode with somebody else who you know will benefit and have their life changed. Thank you again so very much. It means the world to me. Go out there and be great today. Make a positive impact in the world.